I've had a multi-pronged career, David. I started straight out of university as a high school teacher. I was a trained mathematician and economist, so I went and taught that for 6 years, and I taught around the world. So it's that combination of teaching, which is having to simplify things to a difficult audience, particularly when you're teaching a subject like maths, and also working in a multicultural environment. You know, teaching, I taught in Latin America, I taught in South Asia, I taught in the Middle East. Each of those cultures has a different way of absorbing information, of doing stuff with the information. So unbeknownst to me, I was learning all about behaviours and psychology through my teaching career. But ultimately, I was only a teacher for 6 years. I then moved into the corporate world, and that's where I started to work in the strategy world. Actually, I joined an oil and gas firm, and I used my maths and economics to do strategy and analysis. And it wasn't long before I was headhunted into strategy consulting, where I went in 12 years from analyst to partner. So I kind of did all the consulting, and it really became fascinated with what was strategy. I wrote some big strategies for big companies around the world. And then when I went back to see if they were doing them, 9 times out of 10 they weren't. And that's where I realised that having a great strategy alone, an idea, isn't enough, because in those 90% of times, it was human behaviours that were stopping the strategy from being successful. And I realised from my teaching experience, I was very, very good at fixing them. You know, get me in a room with people who didn't understand, couldn't agree, couldn't get excited by an idea, and I could fix all that. And that's where the idea of Shiageto was born. You know, you've got to build strategy, not just thinking about the IQ part. You've got to think about how does it feel for the people, but also how focused. Well, actually, the focus bit, the FQ, was the thing that came to me last. You know, when I really dug, I said it's still not just about a great idea and a bunch of people really excited by it. There's got to be something else. And that's when I realised it was about focus as well. IQ, EQ, FQ, and success is very much linked to my own life. Mm-hmm. You know, the FQ in particular is the aspect that is my weakest of the three. You know, I looked back at areas of my life where I'd been super successful versus ones where I haven't. And it was that lack of discipline, lack of focus, lack of prioritization. And so I think about the things that went really wrong. So often we learn most from the failure, not the success. But it's when you compare the failures to the successes that you can spot where the areas for development are. And, you know, I just look at my life as a constant experiment, you know, and that's the attitude I approach with my clients. You know, I'll give you the ideas, let's try them out, you know, and if they work, we keep doing them. And if they don't, we'll pick the next idea. So very much, you know, my successes and failures have been the backbone for this methodology and for the successes and failures of the companies that I work with.